Hey guys, today I've got a question. Have you ever lost control of your airplane, flown into the mouth of an airborne octopus from another dimension, forcing you to travel back in time, mend past relationships, and unkill the dead? I know, who hasn't, right? Today I want to review a movie called Altitude, and it's a movie that follows this group of 20-somethings on their way to see a Coldplay concert, but rather than drive, they've decided to rent a Piper Navajo and take a 90-minute flight piloted by a young woman named Sarah. Sarah is a non-instrument rated pilot whose flying skills are pretty much questioned by the entire group throughout the duration of the film. Through a series of flashbacks, we learn that when Sarah was very young, her mother, who's also a pilot, was killed in a mid-air collision. Remember that fact. This is going to come back and punch you in the gut in a major plot twist that would make M. Night Shyamalan say, "I didn't see that coming." So there's a lot in this movie that's pretty far-fetched, but I figure if you're able to accept the fact that people are going to put in this much effort to attend a Coldplay concert, you probably won't have a lot of trouble dismissing reality when things start to get weird. And by weird, I'm talking about time-traveling sky squids from other dimensions that eat airplanes kind of weird. That's where we're headed, guys. Let's go. So the movie starts out pretty normal. The group's gathered at the hangar where Sarah has rented the Navajo for her trip. And I feel like the writers worked really hard to let you know that either they're a pilot or they've done a lot of homework. There's a whole lot of really forced aviation references that we wouldn't really use when talking to non-pilots. The pilot talks to her friends using terminology that I might use if I was talking to one of my friends who's also a pilot. And it was very forced and awkward. So the plane takes off normally, and right away our attention's drawn to this bolt that starts coming loose. And based on the cover of the movie, I'm pretty sure this is the bolt that keeps a giant squid portal closed and allows planes to pass through the sky without being attacked by them. One thing they did really well was the radio dialogue. The pilot to ATC communication was pretty spot on. I actually did a little bit of research to find out if maybe the writer was a pilot. I haven't really confirmed anything, but he does have a lot of aviation-related B movies in his bio. I'll give some examples of those at the end of this video, but the dialogue was spot on. Everything she said was stuff that you would say, and everything they said back was pretty much exactly what you'd hear when you're flying an aircraft departing an airport and making a cross-country flight. After a bit of flying and a whole lot more forced aviation dialogue, it finally happens. The bolt comes completely loose, of course jamming itself in the elevator in the full aft position. This is when it starts to get a little weird. From best I can tell, the plane starts climbing at about 60,000 feet per minute. Now, I personally have never flown a Navajo, so I don't really know what the specifications are. I've flown a lot of airplanes. The 60,000 I'm based on how fast I see the altimeter spinning. It might have been a little slower or a little faster, I don't know, but I'm not aware of any planes, maybe like a space shuttle that might climb that fast. But that was the first thing where it was just like, this doesn't make any sense at all. We didn't do our research on everything. So while the plane's accelerating out of the atmosphere at the speed of an Apollo rocket, it prompts Sarah to do some math out loud where she learns that based on the height they're at, the speed they're going, and the weight the plane is at, they're going to need to throw some stuff overboard to make the plane lighter because they don't want it to stall because it's, I can't, it's just bad. The group works together, they open the back doors at 30,000 feet and start throwing stuff overboard to make the aircraft lighter. This is when we get the first glimpse of a sky tentacle.
I saw something! What is it? What's going on?
Now the movie takes a bit of a turn and it weirdly tries to become like The Breakfast Club with a lot of out-of-place teen drama dialogue and conversations that don't follow a theme. There's a drug overdose at one point and some boyfriend-girlfriend drama. And then the autistic kid gets to fly the plane for a second, but that makes everyone mad, so they tie him to his chair. There's an autistic kid. Did I not mention the autistic kid? There's an autistic kid. The only way you would know he's autistic is because they mention it a lot. He seems to be like one of the most normal characters in the actual plane, but he's definitely autistic because they say it. One other thing I noticed that seemed odd is there's a whole lot of scenes where everybody's in the back of the plane and nobody's flying the aircraft, which has an elevator that's jammed in the full aft position. There are references to an autopilot being on at some point, but even with the autopilot on, the elevator's jammed in the full aft position by the bolt that fell out earlier in the movie. And so there's scenes where everyone's just hanging out in the back of the plane talking and there's no one flying, and you can clearly see gauges just spinning wildly in the background. All right, pay attention and sit down. So here it is, probably the climax of the movie. One of the boys in the film has decided he's had enough and he's gonna go fix this problem the way anybody would. He decides that he's going to climb outside the airplane and go back to the elevator and kick it with his foot, freeing it and allowing them to regain control of the aircraft. Now, I know if there's any non-pilots watching this, you're probably wondering, could this really happen? Absolutely. I couldn't tell you how many times I've had a control surface that's stuck. You just climb out there, bang on it, and then you're off and running. The group discusses this plan internally, and they do all agree that this is the best course of action. The man ties a rope around himself. He ties the other end to the inside of the plane, and then they tie the middle of it around to another guy. Don't know why. And as they open the doors at 30,000 feet, he climbs out, and as one of the people decides to try to stop him, he screams, "I've been free climbing since I was 12 years old." Don't let your kid free climb when they're 12 years old, but also I don't think if you're a free climber, that qualifies you to climb outside of a plane in the rain at 30,000 feet. Did I say 30,000 feet? So tethered to this rope, he climbs out, he hangs from the tail of the aircraft, and he kicks the elevator with his foot. Naturally, this fixes the plane completely, and Sarah's able to regain control of the aircraft. In a weird plot twist, the guy who had the rope tied around him in the middle at this point decides that he's going to go ahead and cut the rope, which I can only assume means he was eaten by a sky squid that was flying in formation with them. Now, I know this is a nitpick, especially in a movie full of flying sky squids and all kinds of other ridiculous crap. It bothered me a lot how easily they were able to close the doors once they had them open. If you've ever been in a plane and had the door come open, I have 3 or 4 times, you're not going to get it closed in the air. You got to land, yo. That's the only way you're getting a door closed in flight. These people just willy-nilly opened and closed doors at 30,000 feet in their Piper Navajo with no problem whatsoever. Again, it's a nitpick, and in the grand scheme of things, not the weirdest part of the movie, but that kind of drove me a little nuts. So our autistic friend, it turns out, has this comic book with him. He starts flipping through the pages and realizes the scenes in the comic book are what's happening in the plane. This is when it dawns on him that he's controlling everything that's happening. And this is also about the point that the sky squid catches up with the airplane and starts to consume it. And now everything just goes crazy. This is where it gets weird. I keep saying that. The movie gets weird in a lot of places. So since he decides that he's creating this situation by reading this comic book and making these things happen, Sarah says, think about something else. And he does. This is where it gets complex. So now we have a flashback of Sarah's mom having a midair collision while she's flying a 172. And now we realize in the back of the 172 is the child version of our autistic friend who's grown up now, and the plane with which she has the midair collision is a Piper Navajo, which seems to be being flown by Sarah. So now Sarah's flying and the 172 comes at her and she avoids it, thus not killing her mom in the past. And then when they land, we have a flashback where we time travel now to where Sarah is a kid and her mom lands the 172 and is alive now. And then the boy who is in the back seat, who's in the future going to be the autistic kid, is friends with Sarah. And it's happy. A lot of people that died lived, which is great. Some people died. But at the end of the day, nobody had to go to a Coldplay concert. So it's kind of a win-win, except for the people who died. So I guess the big question is, would I recommend this movie? And the answer is absolutely yes. Go watch this movie. It's called Altitude. It's from 2010. There's some other movies called Altitude that are not this movie. You'll know this one because it's got the squid in the sky attacking the airplane at 30,000 feet that somehow no one's getting hypoxia in, even though the doors are open most of the flight. It's hilarious. It's a B movie. It's the funnest, stupidest, dumbest aviation B movie ever. And I think it's great. And I think you should watch it with your pilot friends or with your non-pilot friends. It doesn't matter. Go find this movie. It's $4.99 on Amazon right now. That's where I got it. But anyway, you should watch it, and you should watch it with some friends, probably while you're drinking alcohol or something. Anyway, if you have any other movies that you think I should see, I would love to learn about them and talk about them here. Leave a note in the comments about some other great aviation B movies that are just over-the-top crap, and I'd love to watch them. So until then, everybody, be safe, fly smart, and I'll catch you next time.